Creepypastas have for a long time been the fuel that has driven the nightmares of thousands all over the globe. From stories about a teen deformed in flames seeking to kill others, to a Russian sleep experiment detailing the outworking of a gruesome Russian gas chamber experiment, the popularity and infamy of creepypastas has grown substantially over the years. Some creepypastas have even risen to heights of being turned into a movie or a video game, bringing the genre closer and closer into the spotlight. But with so much popularity, creepypastas were bound to accumulate a host of dead stories that many became frustrated sifting through in order to locate a story that would fuel their nightmares once again. As such, many incredibly scary creepypastas have remained buried under the popularity of some and the sheer numbers of others. And while some of the creepypastas contained within the following list are gaining popularity, in my opinion, all the creepypastas contained within this list deserve much more. And so, this list contains 10 creepypastas that, in my opinion, are underrated in comparison to some of the more popular creepypastas. Please be mindful that this list is my opinion only and contains some creepypastas that some may consider already well established. Also, I will not be providing any major spoilers for the stories, so if you would like to read the stories in full, I have provided the links in the description below. And so, without further ado, let's begin. The Creepypasta 12 Minutes is a reasonably short but powerful creepypasta. The creepypasta itself is not very well known, but has been around for some time. The plot of the story features a local news channel, which has been attempting to fill in a time slot before some of the regular Sunday morning programs. It isn't long before a religiously fueled man named Marley Sachs offers to fill this time slot with a religious broadcast. Not too long after broadcasting the show, though, some women, and always women, call into the network and complain of feeling uncomfortable and nauseous when watching the broadcast. After the network checks the material with nothing being found, along with plummeting ratings, the network decides to pull the plug on the show. Sometime later, though, an intern to the network finds some of the long-lost tapes and begins playing through them. What he finds is very startling, and what happens next is truly strange and disturbing. No End House is a moderately sized creepypasta that features a story that, to the author's credit, is very well written. The story features a plot about the author visiting an abandoned house that is supposedly haunted. The author visits the house after being offered $500 in cash winnings if he can sit within each room of the house. The venture into the building begins with the lobby room offering cheap Halloween gimmicks that the author finds more amusing than scary. The author soon notices that there are no people within the lobby and decides to look for the first room, which he soon finds labeled with a large number 1 on the front of the door. The first few rooms that the author enters are very tame, but before long, the rooms begin to take a darker turn for the worse. It isn't long before the author encounters terrifying circumstances as he tries to push through to the 9th room. Bunk Bed is a mysterious and chilling creepypasta that leaves most people wanting more. The story features 2 brothers that sleep in the same room, with the brother on the bottom bunk sharing his experience at nighttime when the brothers were alone in the room. The brother on the bottom bunk explains in his story that his brother loves to torment him, and that each night his brother would growl at him from the top bunk, exclaiming that no one would save him. The story provides further details on the brothers' threats before the brothers are given side-by-side single beds. But with a twist at the end of the story, one is left wondering exactly what has been happening to the brother on the bottom bunk bed. Annie96's Typing is a clever and yet bizarre creepypasta that sees 2 people having a discussion over an internet chat box. The story begins with a male and female character discussing various elements of their lives at nighttime as both characters struggle to sleep. Soon, though, Annie begins to hear some strange noises coming from outside of her window. Not wanting to leave the comfort of her bed, though, she decides to ignore the noise. That is, until the noises become louder and louder. Annie shares her experience with her friend over the chat box and informs him that she's going to look out the window for the sound. When Annie comes back, though, she provides a very strange and creepy detail to her friend that leaves the reader scratching their head. Annie soon finds herself hiding within a closet as what she sees in the window begins to draw closer and closer. Lightning is a short creepypasta that leaves most people with a bad taste in their mouth, and not because the story is terrible, but because the ending is truly shocking. The story features a boy who is afraid of lightning storms and triumphantly exclaims to his father that he was able to stay up and watch the lightning from his window the previous night. The father, being pleased with his son's bravery, congratulates his son, and the pair go about their day and night until the following morning, at which time the man's son exclaims that he enjoyed watching the lightning from his window once again last night. The father, now confused, explains to his son that he must have been dreaming because there was no storm last night. This routine goes on for some time, with the lightning storms appearing more frequently each subsequent week. That is, before the father makes a terrifying discovery about the lightning that his son has been seeing each night. Faulty Wiring, true to its name, features the story of a young man who begins hearing some strange noises coming from the air conditioning unit within his home. At first, he dismisses the noises as the unit being old and problematic. That is, before other strange events begin to occur. The home's electrics begin flickering on and off, along with strange noises being heard throughout the night. Finally, having enough of the problems with the electrics, the young man calls in the maintenance man to look into the problem. But what the maintenance man finds is perhaps not what the young man had bargained for. And with an ending that leaves the very obvious problem unsolved, the story ends on a cliffhanger. The Creepypasta Stairs features the story of an old lady that lives in a two-story home who requires the assistance of an in-home care professional to meet her needs. The story begins after the woman contacts the police to inform them that one of her in-home care providers had been killed and that the murderer had fled the scene just prior to the phone call. Police soon arrive on the scene to find the corpse of a person that has had their vocal cords ripped from their throat and the old lady upstairs in her wheelchair. It isn't long before the police officer develops a crime scene and begins looking around for clues. Unfortunately for the police officer, though, it's what he doesn't find that leaves the officer with his hand on his pistol. The Showers is a reasonably lengthy creepypasta that tells the story of a teacher's adventure back to a mysterious location he had experienced as a young college kid. The story begins with the teacher explaining to his class that he and some friends had located a tunnel which was hidden off of an old beaten track leading into farmland. The abandoned tunnel was located under some large cellar doors which led down into a large, still, dark hole. The tunnel featured flickering lights, which meant that it was attached to the grid, and after spending some time looking around, the teacher states that he thought that he saw something darting back and forth between the flickering of the lights. And after locating a door, something terrible happens to one of the teacher's friends within the tunnel. After some time, the teacher goes on to explain in the story that after some years, he returned to the location to try and find out more about what secrets may be hidden there. After looking around and trying to find the cellar doors for some time, the teacher locates a soft spot in one of the now decrepit building floors. The teacher turns to a friend who he had brought with him to show him, before he tumbles back down into the tunnel he had traveled in some time ago. Except this time, he is in an area of the tunnel he does not remember, and there are some strange sounds coming from within the darkness in front of him. Whimsywood is a creepypasta story that features a young boy who travels with his parents to a place that features a large carnival-like park. The story begins with the family taking a turn after finding some signs pointing them in the direction of the location. The boy begins zooming from one stand to the next as he makes the most of the time he has at the carnival. However, during the boy's travels, he comes across a petting zoo with small animals, which features an old man stationed at it. After remaining at this part of the carnival for a short while, the man at the station beckons the young boy over and shows him the rotting corpse of a dead chicken. Freaked out, the boy races back to his parents, desiring to fill them in on what had happened. But being unable to explain the situation clearly, the boy's parents dismiss the event and explain to their son that animals sometimes become old and pass away. A little freaked out but wanting to make the most of his time at the carnival, the boy decides to move on to the next attraction, a park tunnel ride known as Timber Tunnel. But it is what happens at the end of the story that has everyone scratching their head. The number one spot on this countdown list has to go to Psychosis. Now, I know it's an already reasonably popular creepypasta. I also know that there are people who won't believe that Psychosis will deserve the number one spot. But with so many other titles more popular than Psychosis having plot holes and undeserved hype, Psychosis, in my opinion, does not get the praise it deserves. The story begins with a man talking about how lonely he feels, given that he has been living within a building with only his computer. After some time, the man receives a phone call from a good female friend. The conversation appears to be going well before the man notices that his friend appears to have forgotten where he lives. The man initially brushes this off, but before long, various other strange things begin to occur. The plot of the story keeps the reader on edge as the reader has to try to determine whether or not the man suffers from some form of psychosis, or if an unknown entity really has taken over the minds of his friends and is seeking to claim the anomaly that is the main protagonist. By the end of the story, the reader is left believing that the man does indeed suffer from some type of psychosis. That is, until the final twist at the very end of the story, which leaves the reader questioning whether or not the unknown entity really does exist. The story is an impressive example of a clever plot that constructs a fine line between reality and fiction that the reader darts between as the story plays out. And the fact that the story sets out to develop a slow creeping terror where the reader has to question reality, it's a breath of fresh air from much of today's horror genre, which has been dominated by jump scares and short-lived fear. This story draws the reader into the dread and terror of the protagonist, and by the end of the video, all of reality is in question. And for these reasons, I believe that Psychosis is the number one most underrated creepypasta. G'day mates, it's B-Buster here. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video guys. And as always, it would be awesome if you could like, share, comment and subscribe if you're new. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for updates throughout the week. You can also catch me on my second channel, all of which have links in the description below. Thanks again for always tuning in guys, for all the love and support, and I'll see you mates in the next one.